Choir members who are still here, but especially the choir this morning, your music is fabulous, and you really call forth from me a wonderful sense of God's presence and joy. So thank you for that. And John, you didn't even need to have eye contact on blessing to bring tears to my eyes, so that was wonderful. I bring you greetings from your church family, the United Church of Christ, from our newly elected General Minister and President, the Reverend Dr. John Dorhauer, who up until just a few months ago had been Conference Minister for the Southwest Conference of Arizona and New Mexico. From the Reverend Bennett Guess, who is the Executive Director of Local Church Ministries, who is my superior boss, my number one boss, and from the Reverend Dr. Patrick Dugan, who is Director of Church Building and Loan Fund, who is my immediate boss. So on behalf of them, I extend greetings and a deep and appreciative word of thanks for this congregation's steadfast generosity in support of the wider work and life and mission of the United Church of Christ. You have been wonderful, and we are grateful to this congregation. Thank you. I also want to tell you that I do a lot of traveling. I work with a lot of churches. I've been doing development ministry for over 20 years. And it is almost unheard of in the United Church of Christ for a congregation to meet its budget through its stewardship campaign 2 years in a row. So, most of the churches I work with tend to adopt a deficit budget of anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. And sometimes they can make it, and sometimes they can't. But you people truly are a model for what a healthy church should be about. So thank you. Dishing up abundance. It was rather an unusual juxtaposition of scripture that Renee read this morning, isn't it? I bet you sat there thinking, what is this all about? The Israelites fleeing slavery in Egypt are camped by the sea, and they're now cornered because they've got the sea in front of them and Pharaoh's army coming in behind them. There is no apparent way to go forward. There's a scarcity of dry land and a scarcity of courage and a scarcity of hope. In the John passage, it seems as though Jesus and his disciples, who were invited guests to the wedding celebration in Cana, were really enjoying the festivities when Jesus' mother approaches him and says simply to her son, "They have no wine." Obviously, it ran out. Too many people, not enough wine. A scarcity of wine. There's not enough. There's not enough dry land. There's not enough. There's not enough wine. There's not enough. There's not enough money to do all of this. There's not enough is a mantra and a mindset for our consumer society and our acquisitiveness and our fear of scarcity. I saw it played out in Ohio when I was serving churches in the Cleveland area. The first weather report of a possible snowstorm, and people flocked to grocery stores to stock up on milk, on eggs, on bread, on wine, on beer, whatever they might need to get them through this possible snowstorm. The same reaction was evident in the Boston area where my family and I lived for a number of years, and the same is true in St. Louis, where we live now. The fear of there's not enough, of possible scarcity, was introduced into our faith story by Pharaoh, the Egyptian Pharaoh at the time of Joseph. You remember Joseph, one of the younger sons of Jacob and Rachel, who was sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. Pharaoh had a dream that was interpreted by Joseph of impending famine in the land, and Pharaoh became so fearful that he monopolizes the food supply. He's afraid there will not be enough. So he tries to have it all. And fear begets greed, and greed begets ruthlessness. Pharaoh orders Joseph to oversee to the gathering and the distribution of food. In the first year of the famine, the Israelites, the peasants, come to Joseph for food, and Joseph says to them, "What's your collateral? What have you got in exchange for food?" And they give up their land. In the second year, they come to Joseph for food, and he says, "What have you got?" And they give up their livestock. And in the third year, they have nothing else to give but their own lives. And so the children of Israel, blessed by God through their foremothers and forefathers to be a blessing to all nations, the children of Israel become property, become slaves through an economic transaction fueled by the myth of scarcity. Generations later, those Israelites face a different scarcity, not so much one of food, but one of dry land. In the reading this morning, they have left Egypt, they have the Red Sea in front of them, and Pharaoh's army behind them. They can't see a way forward. They can't see a way of truly trusting God's abundance and power for life. What are they going to do? Well, in my years of pastoral ministry particularly, but also now in the years I've been doing this, working with churches to raise money, I hear echoed some of that fear and myth of scarcity. Here's what I hear. We have never done it this way before. I knew we shouldn't have done this. What are we getting ourselves into? And one of my favorites that actually one of my beloved church members said over and over and over again in the 10 years I was there, "Well, you know, we tried this once, Pastor, and it didn't work. It may have been 20 years ago that we tried it, but it didn't work then. So, well, let's not do anything new, Pastor. It's too risky and we might fail. Let's just keep things the way they are." And even the Israelites said we should have stayed in slavery in Egypt. It's scary moving into God's future. It's scary. And it's life-giving. So while the Israelites were looking over their shoulders at Pharaoh's army and yelling at Moses to blame him for their current predicament, we're a lot like them, I think. We may experience some fearful resistance to change and challenges in new ideas. And over the next 10 to 12 months, this congregation is going to face definitely one, if not two, significant challenges and opportunities. The first challenge rapidly approaches. It's called the season of stewardship. The season of stewardship. And soon you will be invited to make a financial commitment, as well as to think about how you offer your time and your skills and your expertise to support and strengthen the life and ministry of this beloved church. And truly, from what I've heard these last few days, it is your beloved church. I know we so often equate stewardship with dollars. Sometimes I think the first S in stewardship really just ought to be the dollar sign and get it over with. So I usually like to talk about the annual campaign for mission and ministry and operating expenses. For me, stewardship is a way of living as people of faith, a way of caring for others and caring for God's creation. Yes, it involves money, but stewardship is much broader than that. And I have an illustration, so please bear with me. Imagine that this is an offering basket. This is a gift for the annual operating mission and ministry of the church. It's part of what we do as people of faith to help underwrite the witness of this congregation in these communities around you and in the country and the world. We understand this. But this offering basket, this is stewardship. This is, here I am, Lord, in the offering basket of your abundant and gracious life. Here I am, with all that I am and all that I bring, in order to care not only for the church, but for God's creation. That's stewardship for me. The whole being to which God calls us. And Mark, I just saw Mark. Mark? There are a couple of envelopes up here. Would you be sure to collect them? Thank you. You may recall the promotional commercial for a particular credit card. The consumer buys stuff for a vacation or a special event, and each item's cost is noted. And the punchline is priceless. Remember that commercial? Okay. MasterCard does it, and MasterCard's international headquarters are about 8 miles from where I live, so we get a lot of MasterCard stuff around us. Well, church operating budgets and requests for support for the church's life are that ultimate priceless. You need money to pay the utilities. But paying the utilities provides a welcome place for people, inviting them into a safe, attractive, well-lit, comfortable facility. And that, dear friends, is priceless. You need money for Christian education, to educate your children and your youth and your adults into our beloved faith, its values, and its practices. And that education and foundation for life is priceless. You need money for your music and your choir and your staff. In what their presence and their gifts bring to your worship experience is priceless. Everything you do here, inside and beyond these walls, is the priceless expression of this church's ministry and mission. So I encourage you as you approach stewardship to fund this priceless life. The second scarcity in our scripture is the lack of wine. In Jesus' time, wedding festivities lasted 7 days, and it was a community event. That's a lot of hospitality, entertaining, food and drink to provide, and so it's little wonder that there was a scarcity of wine in the midst of the celebration. Jesus says to the servants to fill the jars, which were for ritual washing, the washing of hands before going into a celebration or a public place. Jesus says to the servants to fill the jars, each of which held between 20 and 30 gallons of water, and the water becomes wine. The extravagant hospitality can continue. Throughout his ministry, Jesus revealed the God of blessing and abundance, not of scarcity and greed and ruthlessness. God is like that manager paying a full day's wage for an hour of work. God is like the father who lovingly and joyfully runs down the road to welcome his wandering and wasted and wasteful son home, and clothing him in new clothes and feasting and celebration. God is like the sower of seeds, throwing handfuls of seeds everywhere, disregarding the quality of the soil, but trusting that there will be growth, at least from some of them. God makes a path through the waters of the sea so that the Israelites might walk to freedom and to God's future. Here is our God who provides jars brimming with wine. In Jesus, we encounter God's extravagant and exuberant generosity. God dishes up abundance and invites us to dish up abundance as well. So how is God calling you to dish up abundance? Will you do some random acts of kindness this week, just because you want to? Will you give someone an hour or two of your time to listen? Will you think about increasing a pledge or a contribution to the church? Will you stretch yourself in trust and hope in your giving? Will you, as people of faith, be willing and courageous enough to step out from the shores of familiarity and put your feet and your heart and your resources in the places and the purposes where God is leading you? I invite you to consider how you will dish up abundance for the life of this church. I invite you to consider not only stewardship, but I invite you to consider a possible capital campaign and what that will mean for the church. Again, just a minute. I hope you can hear me because I've been saying this fairly frequently in my time with you in these last 4 days. When a church does a capital campaign and stewardship, there are two pockets that we ask people to consider in their generosity. One pocket, actually there's no pocket in this room right here, so, but one pocket is what we have daily, weekly, monthly in income, what we live off of regularly. And out of that pocket is usually where we give our pledges and our stewardship dollars. What is it that we have monthly that we can give away after we've paid what we need to pay? But the other pocket is accumulated resources. Now, I looked around first service and I looked around second service, and I have bad news for you. You're not a congregation of 20-somethings. You aren't. We aren't. And actually, you had younger-looking faces than a number of churches that I've been in. So, thanks be to God, you're doing good work here. But for those of us who are not 20-something or 30-something or maybe even 40-something, we've worked hard all of our lives. We've made investments. We've set aside for our retirement. And if God has been good over the last umpteen years, there are some accumulated assets that perhaps we can consider giving to the church. So there may be a piece of an IRA. There may be some stock gifts. There may be an item of jewelry. Unfortunately, gold is not as high as it was just even a year ago, but there may be some jewelry that you no longer need. Sell it and give the proceeds to the church and lighten your own load of stuff. So I would invite you, if and when the church chooses to do a campaign, think about what's in this second pocket for the campaign. Never take your annual operating and put it into the campaign. Do not do that. This church is too important to all of us for its annual income and revenue to be jeopardized. So if you can only give to one, please make sure it's your annual stewardship. End of lecture, I promise. But this is an exciting and challenging and somewhat unsettling time for you, and I certainly appreciate that. Your stewardship effort underwrites this congregation's mission and ministry. A possible capital campaign effort will enhance and expand your home for that mission. And it can also identify the next generation of leaders from among those who serve in short-term campaign tasks. And if you seriously reflect and pray about dishing up abundance, it may increase your faith because you're willing to give in sacrificial ways. So, friends, in the months ahead, I invite you to celebrate God's life-giving power and abundance, to come to better know the God of abundant blessing through Christ, and to heed Moses' words, do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance and the abundant life which the Lord will accomplish for you. May you continue to be blessed in all that you are and do. Amen.